Welcome to Cybersecurity Growth, a show for aspiring and existing cybersecurity leaders. I am Shawn Valle.
And I am Garrett Gross.
Welcome to our latest episode, Patch Now, Govern Faster. In today's agenda, we'll get into SharePoint 0 days under active attack, the Craneware healthcare vendor breach, and Gartner's AI agent governance gap.
Oh boy.
There we go.
Plans for every budget with free trials, and every course counts towards CPEs for certs like your CISSP. Try a plan today at cybersecuritygrowth.com.
Hey, Garrett, there's some updates here. So when we built the Cybersecurity Growth platform, it was built around that course you mentioned, the first 100 days of a CISO.
That's right.
I remember we talked about the stats before. Over 500 people have actually attended, partaken somehow in that course. So I love the fact that we created a thing, we put it out there, and people have utilized it and found value and great feedback.
Yep.
There are a whole bunch of new courses that have been developed since we last spoke about things. The most recent one, really interesting, which is not in our show notes. I feel like it should be. Our most recent course is around the world of CMMC, the cybersecurity compliance framework required if you are a Department of Defense or Department of War vendor supplier. Did I just get canceled? With a funny thing, so we've been building for the last few months a CMMC masterclass, and that's what it is. It's a CMMC masterclass for security leaders, IT leaders, and even like managed service providers. Funnily enough, in the last 2 weeks, the federal government completely postponed the entire CMMC program.
I wrote a blog on that. So just because they're pausing this doesn't mean that you need to stop.
Yeah, because the whole reason it exists, the whole reason CMMC exists, there's this NIST publication, SP 800-171, right? It's just it's a publication of requirements and controls, security controls that you should get done. And for the past better part of, a dozen years or so, if you're a supplier to the federal government, your sponsor, whoever at the federal government hires your company to provide toilet paper or provide software or, bullet shells, whatever you're providing to the Department of Defense as a supplier, they're asking you cybersecurity questions. That's like what a company does of their vendors. They ask them questions around how the company runs and how their cybersecurity is. And historically, these questions are based off of NIST 800-171. So they ask you a whole bunch of questions, 17 core categories, and people will come back and be like, yeah, I do all the things, which is what you lie about on compliance questions.
I mean, I don't lie about anything on compliance questionnaires. I don't know about you.
That's why I said that's what you lie about.
Of course,
that's what you lie about on these questions. And so apparently after many, many years of the government finally realizing how come our vendors keep having security incidents when they said we've hardened the system, we put MFA everywhere. Basically what CMMC is the enforcement of 800-171 with an external auditor, right? Paying buku dollars to bring in a third party to come in and audit your stuff. And first it's kind of audit your paperwork just to make sure you get the pieces in place, and then audit your actual controls. Let me see that it actually works. Again, if you're in the world of SOC 2 compliance or ISO 27001 compliance, or if you're a publicly traded company, Sarbanes-Oxley compliance, same idea. It's just now a specific audit and assessment from the federal government. Everyone's been building to it. There's, I forget what the number is, hundreds of thousands of suppliers to the U.S. Department of Defense, and 1% or 2%, I'm making that number up, but somewhere in that frame, are CMMC ready. Right? The rest of the world is not. 800-171 is still the requirement, still exists. You still have to attest we're doing these core controls, we're implementing to level 1 or level 2, or there's 3 levels. But the difference is no external auditor needed to come in. You can still self-attest that you're doing these things. And so it's being brought back to the board. I think it's called the Cyber AB, the board that determines how it all works. Basically, if I think about it from a government perspective, like people we see in the news, like Pete Hegseth's team, it's back to them to figure out, hey, wait a second, we realize we're costing our vendors and suppliers an insane amount of money, and that's not going to help us. It's going to hurt them by, spending a lot of their money. So let's go back and reassess things. But the crazy thing is, it was scheduled to go live in November, right? When we're recording this is July 24th. So just a few months from now, this is scheduled to go live. People have been preparing for it for years. those like big contractors who like to get ahead of things, huge companies with big security and compliance teams, some have already gone through the certification process and actually have, their letters of attestation in front of them. But for everyone else, the idea is like, continue as you were, keep doing those compliance things like you say you have been for the past, 15 years. And we're going to figure out how to come back and try to make this more cost effective.
Interesting. Yeah. I think a lot of people took that as their cue to stop, but it's an interesting tactic. I'm not as informed about it as I should be because I don't work in the DIB at all, but yeah, it's interesting.
So if anyone listening, watching is actually in this space where your company is a supplier vendor to the DoD and you're dealing with this NIST 800-171 thing, we have a course in the Cybersecurity Growth platform, and it's called the CMMC Masterclass. But in truth, it's a huge introduction and overview really for security leaders and IT leaders for like, hey, I need to do CMMC stuff and I need to do it quick. I don't need a deep dive. I actually just need like, go do this, be ready. Our course, even though the CMMCA is on pause, but the course is actually wrapped around NIST 800-171. What are those key controls? What do you need to focus on first? How do you prepare to even do an internal assessment? And then how do you prepare when the external assessors are ready to come knocking on your door? So Garrett, we haven't done a show in a very long time. If I went back,
it's been years.
I think it was 1997. The last
1997 was our last one.
Our last show. I remember like dialing up the modem. It took at least 7 minutes before we could both get online. I'm happy to be back with you.
Likewise.
So today we're changing the format a little bit too. Today we're going to focus on things that are hot literally hot off the press out in industry and in the news. We've got a few topics to cover today, and that's going to be our core focus. So I'll get us started here with our first topic. And let me see if I am able to bring some visual on the screen. And nope, Twitch threw me all off. So let me fix this here. All right. Yes. So this one here coming from securityweek.com. It is around SharePoint and some guidance around CISA. The topic here is SharePoint 0 days under active attack. And once again, CISA saying patch in 3 days. This is not the first time we have heard CISA say patch your stuff in the next 3 days, right? This is the new way of the world. First off, is when security vulnerabilities that are being exploited come in, there's no longer the old, your vulnerability patch management plan where, our high risk ones we get done in 7 to 14 days. Our critical ones our high risks are in a month, and then our low priority ones are in the next 90 days. The reality is, and we are already in the bug apocalypse. These tools are as many are saying, the beginning of the bug apocalypse of finding vulnerabilities very fast with new tools, and then also exploiting them in a very, very quick fashion. So this one here, SharePoint 0 days under active attack.
Do we really think that's feasible?
No,
because like we're not set up to patch things in 3 days. As much as I'd be like, yes, security, let's take over the world, let's tell IT and everyone what to do, but like that's not feasible.
And here's a tough world we're in. Like we've always written, you name the company that has any level of maturity, there is a vulnerability and patch management process written on paper. It's either like a small excerpt in your information security policy, or it's a separate document if you're a little bit more mature. And it always would have usually 3 categories to tell people how quick to patch. Remember,
that's right.
There's patching third-party software, like this one here, SharePoint. And then there's patching first-party, the stuff you build in-house. Like, again, first-party code, still using third-party libraries and whatnot that needs to be patched. Right. But, hearing this one say, your SharePoint's exploited, patch in 3 days. So let's think about SharePoint. First off, who's running SharePoint on premise versus SharePoint in the cloud, right? Everybody, I shouldn't say most everybody, I don't know what the stats are. Microsoft 365, cloud-based, SaaS-based is the push forward. So we're talking legacy orgs that still have on-prem SharePoint, because Microsoft's patching your Microsoft 365 version of SharePoint for you. But CISA is focusing specifically at government organizations, and they are compressing the federal deadline to 72 hours. And they're basically saying that you are likely exposed if you are not patching this immediately. And so, the question that our security leaders should be asking themselves, or preparing to be asked from their executive team and the board, are we exposed? right? If you are a legacy org that still has on-prem SharePoint, on-prem, Microsoft server tooling, back office stuff, you're going to need to answer that question. And Garrett, back to your question, is it feasible? In some cases, yes. In some cases, not, right? Think about patching SharePoint. What does that mean to your IT team? We
That's
need
right.
to turn SharePoint off from our people. And let's say this message comes out on a Monday and you're saying, wait, so between now and Thursday, we have to patch this? We only like to patch in evenings or weekends or scheduled outage times.
And for folks that are not subjected to the rule of Microsoft e-licensing, SharePoint is at the epicenter of your organization. That is where all of your files are like stored and shared. Obviously, if SharePoint goes down, like you have to do business a different way for a couple of days.
Yeah. Okay, a couple things from this post here. 4 SharePoint CVEs are actively exploited. I'll riff them off. If you want to grab them, go for it. CVE 2026 32201. Also 45659. Also 56164 and 58644.
So I looked up that last one. It is a 9.8. It is a 9.8 out of 10. That is an on-off RCE, remote controlled execution vulnerability via deserialization. That is a really, really bad vulnerability to have just out there in the wild.
Couple things to note, just looking at the CVE numbers, they're all dated 2026. So it's not like we're looking at a 2023 CVE that's just reared its ugly head again. And you hear 9.8. Back to Garrett's comment, can we do this within 3 days? The hard point is the hard point of SharePoint. You got to do it. Yeah,
when you're faced with something like that, which again, for folks that you don't live in the realm of vulnerabilities, a remote code and unauthenticated remote code execution vulnerability means that I can make changes from an external port party without any sort of authentication to that system. So if I get access to that SharePoint site, I know how to exploit this vulnerability. It is game over. Now, think about when you were running security, a 9.8, you drop everything and fix that. We see 9.8s come out like weekly now. I don't know how folks are keeping up with this. And again, I don't mean to keep beating the same drum over and over again, but I need to keep up.
I will say we saw this coming when we started to hear the new capabilities, and pointing at the LLM, the frontier models. When we saw the capabilities that were already in place pre-Fable, pre-Mythos, pre-GPT 5.6, it's easier to find bugs, right? And so in this case here, attackers are chaining this new privilege escalation bug with older SharePoint flaws, and it's to steal IIS machine keys and persist, right? So couple things here, stealing keys and persistence, just patching may not kick them out if they're already in. If you already get bad guys in, you may need to do some key rotation. You may need to do some secrets rotation, some password rotation. It is the reality. We've been seeing this coming, and I know we haven't done a show in a few months, but a key thing that we've been having conversations about outside of us doing the show is these next couple of years are going to be painful.
Yes.
It is going to be a painful couple of years, because I think every time we get on and do a show, this is going to be our topic now. Like these hot items that are fresh off the press, and they're 9 to 10, rated CVEs.
And I don't mean to be over dramatic here, but like, I don't know that I've been a part of an inflection point in regards to security like this before. Like we saw something like this when ransomware started to become commoditized, and you started to see like ransomware groups pop up, and that just, made the prevalence of ransomware more and more. But like, this is something that I don't think we have ever seen in security, this prevalence of not only the ability to identify exploitable vulnerabilities with AI, also, and I've talked about this before, the amount of vulnerabilities that are being introduced because of about to swear here, but like the worst code imaginable written by, vibe coders is putting out a bunch of vulnerabilities out into the open as well. So this is like a perfect storm. Quite honestly, I don't know how anyone is keeping up. I have a question, and this is something I'd love to hear your input on. Why is anyone running on-prem SharePoint in 2026? Why is that a thing? And maybe I'm naive, but like, Why would you do that to yourself?
Going back to thinking about who this came from CISA, right? Federal government organization. They're focused on supporting their government customers or their
Good point.
government suppliers and their
Good
government
point.
organizations. So big legacy behemoth orgs who still haven't moved off is probably the answer. But
That's
probably,
fine.
those who have that fear of cloud or that fear of SaaS and they want to have control. So, overly sensitive environments where, hey, this stuff needs to be on-prem because we can't let someone else control it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to comment on that because I know there are a lot of people that are just kind of between a rock and a hard place. You're in a heavily regulated environment. You're in an organization that just doesn't feel like moving. But in 2026, where we keep classified information in the cloud, like what's the big fear here? I mean, again, everything's going to have trade-offs. So I'm not saying you should just do that with reckless abandon, but when you're faced with having to harden your on-prem SharePoint against threats like these, like you said it earlier, if you're in the cloud, Microsoft's taking care of that for you. That's patched immediately. Yeah. You don't have to take your SharePoint offline. So, I mean, again, it's a trade-off. We've been talking about this for 10 or 15 years, but man, this seems like a forcing function. Yeah.
So, and again, now we're talking like, your required on-prem perimeter security stuff.
Yeah. Right.
Though you're not ripping that out.
No. All right.
All right. Hey, Garrett, introduce us to the second one here, if you can.
So we got a breach from a technology called Craneware. It's one vendor. They're a healthcare vendor. 2,000 hospitals is the blast radius, which that's gigantic. We don't deal in the realm of healthcare breaches. So, the interesting angle here is that your actual attack surface is not just your own environment. And, we've talked about the environment extending to people's houses and coffee shops and stuff. It's also your vendors' environments as well. We talk about third, fourth, fifth party vulnerabilities and breaches. This is the third party risk conversation, but on steroids. And this is a conversation that you would likely need to have with your board this quarter.
Oh, so this is finance software that hospitals use, billing,
pricing. You're exactly right.
So it's all right. So it's a software vendor. So this makes sense. And now I'm thinking about this. A software vendor who supplies medical orgs, and it's focused around finances. So your finance team at a hospital, at a doctor's office, at a clinic, or something like that. This is the software. This is a software that they would use to send you a bill, to send you, that information. So of course, tied back to healthcare records or at least clients, if not, the details of it.
As an attacker, this would be my vector. Is something that's not your EPR. I'm not working healthcare, but your electronic, healthcare records. I wouldn't attack that. I would attack your finance software. I'd attack your HVAC controller. I'd attack your HR management software. So when you see something like this is bad. And this is obviously an attacker taking advantage of a weakness that was just not identified. So what's the status? What have you read about this?
So, I mean, things to think about is come in this angle, find the weak link, like you just mentioned, Garrett, and then figure out, okay, once we're in there, how do we pivot into even more rich data? I mean, finding your clients and finding how much they owe. And by the way, think about like the last doctor's bill you got.
Oh yeah.
Right. So, it says your name, your address, that your bill was $2,000, I'm making up a number, $20,000. And then, it got sent off to your insurance company and now you just owe the $25 copay, right? That type of thing.
Right.
And usually on there's some detail of what service you had. So, there's the really interesting thing for someone who's trying to find specific information on a person or, a group of people, embarrassing health information.
Like, why are we slicing and dicing what part of our PII and PHI is important? Because like any little bit of that is some way for an attacker to get a foothold and start to investigate more and get more data and more reconnaissance. But like, man, anything that is discovered, I feel that is quasi linked to your healthcare is not only a threat to you, but more importantly, extremely valuable on, and I hate to use these terms because it's so dumb, dark web marketplaces. These are very valuable records in the realm of like PII and PHI. When you package these up, you start to sell these to other attacker groups. PHI is super valuable.
Yeah. So this came from TechCrunch, and it's only 4 days old. This was noticed 4 days ago.
Yep.
The company, Craneware, says it's contained. They say their services are back operational. They've informed regulators like FBI and others have been notified. And of course, nothing at least publicly known yet of the root cause. We don't know how many victims. We don't know how much was disclosed. We don't know how fast they were in there, how long they lasted. So Garrett, back to your question, don't know. They do
Right.
say it's contained and things are back up and running, and they've got folks involved dealing with it. That's what we know so far.
Well, so I guess your decision here is, okay, so Craneware says it's contained. Craneware comes back and says, hey, we had a breach, but your data probably wasn't sensitive. Do you still trigger your incident response playbook? Or do you, and start to notify all of your clients and all of your customers and all your patients and start that whole process?
Not wait until it's completed is my initial answer to that comment and question you had. Based on what we know now publicly, I don't have enough information to trigger an incident response yet, right? I have a security event, something happened, but I don't have enough data. I don't have enough data points to say, oh, this event and this event and this event deems an incident. I don't have enough yet. And so this is a very tough part for a SecOps leader and a security leader. You know your vendor has, again, in the news, breach. They're using the big B word here. They're not saying like we had a security issue, but they're saying we had a breach.
It's a breach, yeah.
And my hope is that these 2,000 hospitals and these 10,000 different clinics and pharmacies that were impacted, that they have been notified individually of what was impacted so they can start their own incident response process. But if they know what you and I know right now, this is a data point. I don't have enough to spin up incident response to know what to look for.
Yep.
This is one of those tough scenarios where here we are on a Friday, I don't feel comfortable going, calling it a week and going into the weekend, knowing that there's an incident on a core vendor of ours, but they haven't given us. So what's happening? The key incident response piece, but it's not truly response yet, is on the phone, getting with my customer success manager, demanding more data.
So I think it calls into question, because you said yourself, and I agree with you, we don't have enough data to kick off our actual incident response playbook. Those of you that are listening to this should ask yourself, do you have a vendor response playbook? Because again, this isn't sit there and do nothing, but this also isn't spin everyone up and get everyone freaked out. But there is a middle ground, because, and I used to talk about this a lot, I don't really talk about it anymore, but like third, fourth, fifth party breach stuff, when a vendor that a vendor you used has been breached, what do? You should really be thinking about this stuff. I mean, don't sit there and spend a bunch of time scaring yourself and spinning yourself up, but my God, like, have a plan.
It's a good one. Okay, third topic here, around the world of Gartner. Isn't Gartner our hype cycle friends? Aren't they the ones?
They are the ones who invented my favorite term, the trough of disillusionment.
Yes, and also the Magic Quadrant. Also, another thing. I mean, there are 4 quadrants, but the magic one is the one that anyone ever pays attention to, apparently. So Gartner, the topic here is AI agents are outpacing governance 8-1, and that there's $234 billion at risk. And so what the details here are, agents are entering production 7 to 8 times faster than organizations can build governance. And the CISO, who's waiting for a framework to inherit an ungoverned fleet. This is something, this is, a reality where every company has either a Gemini, a ChatGPT, a Claude, a Copilot, where our business users are now developers. They're now, are now building things to help make themselves more effective, more efficient, to improve their workday and deliver things for them. And they're creating agents and releasing those. And an agent is a piece of production software.
Yes.
It is rolled into, it's not deemed production across, any standards of an SDLC, but it is production software doing production things. And this data point that Gartner recognizes that 7 to 8 times faster agents are being released than security orgs and compliance orgs can even get their arms around it. Crazy.
And every agent, every skill, every component of whatever your agentic infrastructure is that touches the internet, which I would imagine is every single one, that is a potential vulnerability. Excuse me. anything that's out there listening, broadcasting, whatever, that is an opportunity for you to get owned. So when you're telling me that, I see it in organizations, my own organizations that I deal with, folks are ramping this up. Everyone is becoming a developer. Now, I will say, thankfully, in the organization I'm a part of, we're being very conservative. We're using a lot of AI, but we're being very judicious about it. But I know other orgs out there, and very large ones that I will not name, that are like, go for it. Like, do whatever you can with AI. And again, it's like, even when we see this like Claude bot taking over all of the vulnerabilities that come up, there are still organizations out there that are like, go full speed. And it blows my mind.
And like, this is an org chart problem. It's not a tech problem. Like, who owns agent identity and authorization? Can you answer that? Who owns security of agents? Is it IT? Is it security? Who's deploying agents? Are they being deployed at the department level? Like, is someone in sales allowed to create an agent that's out there generating new leads?
Right.
Or taking leads from your Salesforce instance and nurturing those leads and maybe creating automated LinkedIn messages or automated emails out to those leads. Think about these things. This is the reality we live in, because you have your sales engineers exploring and experimenting with creating agents to help them be more effective and efficient, and they're rolling those things into production. So who's governing that stuff?
Well, I mean, you got folks running Salesforce instances that are now developers. And I'm not saying that they're not qualified and these aren't smart individuals, but these are not individuals with 10 years of development experience where they have to account for security issues. So to your question earlier, who owns this? Who's deploying this? If you don't have concrete answers to that, you're in a bad spot. Like, you need to fix that now. There has to be an owner. It's like the whole somebody call 911. Hey, someone get a hold of these agents. No. You have to have a person.
That scenario that I was sharing a couple minutes ago is not me making up a scenario for us to talk about this. It was a real scenario with a sales rep at the org who was demonstrating this very cool agent that they developed to help them basically grow their bench of potential customers, right? And because they were enabled from the CEO on down to go use AI tools to become more effective, more efficient. And this person has a technical mindset. Even though they're in sales, they still are, technically astute. And so they went off and built, and they rolled this thing into production. Maybe they showed their manager, maybe they didn't. Maybe it didn't matter because it came from an all hands where the CEO says, y'all go do something with AI, show it off the next time we all get together. So, right. Who's governing this stuff? And if you don't know who it is, shame on you, because you got to figure it out. This is the reality.
Well, that's all we think about. That's our first, our prime directive is security. But think about the CEOs and the business leaders that are like, hey, the risk is worth the reward. I'm willing to go put whatever out there and just do this with reckless abandon if we can be the first to market. If we can be the first one that actually gets this right. I will go on record in saying that I am not comfortable with that. As a security person, I do not think that that is the right approach.
Yeah. All right. We're out of time, but
of this. Well, I'm wearing a shirt from Spectre Ops, my favorite privilege escalation vendor. I love Bloodhound. I've been using it since it was an open source project. It is the best way to map out any privilege escalation paths in your Active Directory. We're not sponsored by Spectre Ops. Nope. I'm just a huge fan.
Nice.
What about you, Shawn? Who are you wearing?
So again, basically everything is at the well. I missed last RSA. And I am going to miss this black hat. This time, like, I'm intentionally missing this black hat. I made a decision. I was going to go. I had a hotel booked for it, but I'm not. So you'll see some repeats. But fortunately, I've got a good 50 t-shirts, so it'll take a while before you see them all. But today is a classic Metasploit tee. That's all.
Yes.
No story. It's Metasploit. You know what it is. I know what it is.
You
Come on. Just, I had to throw some Metasploit on. That's all.
And if you don't know what Metasploit is, do yourself a favor and educate yourself and go find out what Metasploit is and learn how to use it.
All right. We're about to go into the weekend. We should both leave everyone with one quick thought going into the weekend and starting next week. My quick thought, and I'm going based off of some of the news today, but the quick thought can be anything. We talked about SharePoint earlier. Do yourself a favor. If you already know this answer, you're not starting your weekend today. If you already know the answer to what I'm about to ask, you're not starting your weekend today. But if you are starting your weekend, ask yourself this on Monday morning. Nah, you can't wait till Monday. You're going to have to ask yourself now. Do we run on-prem SharePoint anywhere? And if you say, no, we're a Google shop, still ask. And if you're like, no, we migrated to M365, and then I'll say, how old's your company? And if you say your company's more than 15 years old, I'm still going to ask you to go check.
Start looking for that SharePoint server out there. My parting thought is go out and do stuff. You got a makerspace in your area, go out and do stuff. You going to DEF CON this year, go out and do stuff. Go meet people. You see some guy wearing some wild stuff on their head or some blinky badge, go up to him and talk to him and be like, what is that? And what does it do?
Garrett, are you going to DEF CON this year?
I am absolutely going to DEF CON this year.
Can you share in like a minute anything interesting about your plans?
Okay. Not that I have this keyed up or anything. I will be wearing, as part of the hard hat brigade, my custom made hard hat, which this year is a self-contained 90s hacker themed cable TV station. So if you're at DEF CON and you see me walking around with this, please come up and say hi and ask me, what the hell is that thing on your head?
I'm so mad I'm not going just for that. Just to be walking in your shadow and watching and capturing video and sharing it back here.
I only made that hard hat to make you jealous because I knew that you weren't going.
Yeah, we're sure. Appreciate it. Okay. This is the first time we have done a show. I think that we've hit the record button maybe since December. I know there have been a few other shows and there's been other like snippets, and I've done some one-off shows. We're thinking about getting back to this every couple of weeks. So we're just teasing that out there. Hopefully y'all are back for the ride. We want to get back on this ride with you. So thank you for growing with us here on Cybersecurity Growth. I'm Shawn Valle.
I'm Garrett Gross. Thanks so much.
Thank you all for joining. We will catch you next time. Bye, everybody.